Story 1. Stole drugs from someone she definitely should not have, and I had to smooth things over, resulting in me almost getting shot. The second I got back to the house, I told her to get her things and leave, and I never looked back. Story 2. She found the keys I hid when she was very drunk. I told her I would not let her leave drunk and that I would sleep on the couch if needed. We had lived together for over a year at that point. She got in the car parked in our garage, and I stood right behind it, pleading with her not to drive. She threw it in reverse and would have run me over if I had not jumped up on the trunk and then rolled out of the way. That was that. I do not need that in my life. Story 3. He got upset that he and his children were not included in my will. I was a single mother, and we had been dating for 3 months. Story 4. I wanted to send myself a copy of a picture he had taken, so he gave me his phone to find it. Before this moment, I knew he had a foot fetish, and I found a few secret pictures of my own feet. I did not actually care that much until I found hidden pictures of my mother's feet. Relationship over. Story 5. My grandfather offered to buy her lunch while we were out with my family at the local Scottish games, and she flipped out on him. He was stunned, said never mind, and walked away. I was baffled that anyone would treat my grandfather in such a way. When we were in the car on the way home, she started calling him a pedophile and saying he was hitting on her. She was 21 at the time. My grandfather just wanted to get to know her. I broke up with her on the way home and told her that my family was more important to me than she was. The next day, I called my grandfather to apologize, and all he said was, "You're grown up and can make your own decisions, but I don't think she's right for you." I agree, Grandpa. I totally agree. Story 6. I got a job working at an oil plant that was fly in, fly out, so I stayed in camp and was gone for a week at a time. There was terrible cell service at the plant and outside the control room, so I couldn't text him back for most of the day because I worked in the field. Every time I got back to camp at the end of the day and my phone connected to the tower, it would light up with about 100 texts and missed calls from him. This was just my first week at the job. When I flew home and he picked me up at the airport, he spent the entire drive accusing me of cheating and saying I probably slept with every guy in camp. He said he watched everyone get off the plane and that I was the only woman on the plane, so he assumed I was involved with others there too. I just quietly listened to him, and when he dropped me off at my house, I didn't even say goodbye. I went inside, locked the doors, and blocked his number. Story 7. I found out that he was engaging in inappropriate behavior involving children. I didn't know that I could stop caring about someone so instantly. Story 8. Almost cost me my job by showing up there jealous of my boss, causing a scene. Mortifying and the last straw. Story 9. He told me he was only with me for my looks. He wanted me to chase him, but I ignored him instead. He harassed me for 2 years after that. Story 10. Our marriage counselor told me that he had stopped engaging in therapy and is refusing to do anything that isn't for himself. She suggested I take a break from him and think about what I truly want out of our marriage and if what he's offering is it, because that's all he said I would get. I came home, told him I wanted to take a break for a couple of days and that I was staying at a friend's. He called me a selfish name, threw a glass at me from across the room, blocked the door as I tried to leave, grabbed me by the arms, and threw me on the bed. He said he was leaving for a minute and I better be gone by the time he got back. I packed what I could and never looked back. He texted me about 15 minutes later saying it was the first time I had ever listened to him and maybe we could make this marriage work after all if I come back. I have never deleted that text to remind me that any time after that I felt I still needed him. Complete narcissist. Story 11. I walked in on him performing oral sex on my cousin. I am a woman and I am straight. I thought he was too. For clarity, it was a heterosexual marriage. Story 12. I discovered that she was cheating on me. I took some pictures, sent them to her, then threw out her belongings, blocked her number, and did not answer the door when she came to my place. I completely cut off contact after that despite the fact that we had dated for more than a year. Story 13. It was 7 a.m. on New Year's Eve. We were at the airport to fly out and go to a party. He was still drunk from the night before, stomping behind me like a big baby, hollering, "You know I hate morning flights. Why would you book such an early flight? Then the kiss of death when he hissed, "You're so stupid." I stopped and turned to look at him. My inner voice asked, "What are you doing with this mess of a man?" I walked out of the airport and left him there. Story 14. Not a partner, but a man I was dating seemed fine the first few weeks. One day he shared his disturbing fantasies, which involved restraining me and taking me out in his van for a week to be sexually assaulted in some campground. He also had a strong interest in Cub Scout uniforms. That was absolutely terrifying once the facade dropped. Story 15. He screamed at the waitress because his steak was medium well instead of medium. He walked straight out of the restaurant, blocked her number, and never looked back. Anyone who treats service workers like that is not getting a second chance. Story 16. It had been roughly a year and a half of seeing each other. One day, she asked me to buy her a doll from Vint because the seller had blocked her. I said no, as I felt I did not want to go around the seller's decision not to sell to her. I endured 3 days of "buy me this doll. Please buy me this doll. If you loved me, you'd buy this doll." On the 4th day, while I was at work, she sent me a string of abusive messages, calling me every name under the sun because the doll had sold. I simply said, "Not doing this anymore. I'm breaking up with you." The abuse then turned into days of begging and pleading before I was able to retrieve my belongings and discontinue contact with her completely. Then she drank acetone, but that is another story. Story 17. She screamed at her daughters in public for trivial things. She got loud with her parents and waitstaff for little or no reason. I dropped her off after a date, told her this is not what I am looking for, and wished her luck. I blocked her on everything and moved on. Story 18. He confessed to me that the police had just shown up at his grandparents' house looking for him because he was watching illegal content involving minors. He then admitted he had a serious problem. I moved out that night and took the cats with me. Story 19. Called me a lazy person because I took my lunch hour. I walked the dogs. While he was sitting on his backside for the 3rd week in a row after he quit his job without another lined up. Story 20. Not married, thankfully. We refinanced our house to pay off credit card debt. 6 months later, I got on the computer and saw she hadn't closed the windows. I noticed she was back up to $20,000 in credit card debt. I packed my stuff the next day and gave her the option to keep the house in her name or move out and let me keep the house. She chose to stay. 1 year later, I was forced to sell the house to pay off her debts. Story 21. He wished death upon the elderly women who live next door, ruining his life, because someone had asked the building supervisor to talk to him about the noise. He was having a house party with loud music blasting through open windows at 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Story 22. Asked why it had taken me 21 minutes to go to the shop for milk when he had timed it at 16. Who was I talking to? Yeah, go away. Story 23. He had Grindr on his phone 6 days after our 1-year anniversary and 13 months after we deleted our dating apps. It wasn't just on his phone. He sent me a screenshot showing it as his last used app, as if he was switching between using Grindr and texting me. I asked him why he had Grindr on his phone, and he said, "I don't know why that's there, my bad. Haha." He knew why and I knew why, so I ended the relationship. Story 24. Not a partner, but my best friend in high school. He was a chill and nice person. Then one day he just became obsessed with Adolf Hitler. He hung up a flag and everything. I went from going there every day to not going there again. That was 30 years ago. Story 25. He was extremely attractive, charismatic, and charming, but also narcissistic and manipulative. If I did not give it up at least twice a day, I was told how bad of a girlfriend I was and that there was no point in being with me since I clearly did not care about him and his needs. Every time I tried to leave, he would guilt me back in. On our 6-month anniversary, he told me I was not putting enough effort into my oral sex. I got up, said I was done, and left. Forget you, Tony. Story 26. Broke up immediately after he unilaterally canceled the couples therapy sessions I had planned for us for the 2nd time, after I made clear this was the single most important thing for me and after he agreed to them. Story 27. He was taking Adderall and starting to act unreasonably paranoid. One day, I went to take a shower and found a hidden camera in the bathroom with me. I remember saying, I hope this is a sex thing, but it wasn't. He genuinely thought I was in the bathroom texting or communicating with another person. I was not. I was raising our 6-month-old baby and never even left the house, much less knew anyone to secretly text with. It was out of control. He left to go to a gas station while we were in the middle of fighting about me finding the camera, and I left. I gave him about 1 month to try to reach out, act like a father, or shift focus to our daughter, but he was still hyper-focused on this phantom texter I was supposedly leaving him for. I moved in with my mother when I left. After a month of this nonsense and no change in attitude or attempt to shift focus to the child, I changed my number, deleted my Facebook and all other social media accounts, and moved 2 hours away to a place we had no ties to. I started completely fresh with my daughter, opened a business, and became a very successful single mother to an amazing child. For critics of my leaving him with our child, there was an open line of communication between him and my mother if he ever wanted it. He never attempted to reach out or even knew we had moved until years had passed. I would have been open to contact had he ever reached out, but he never did. There was no way I was going to spend 9 years squandering my potential for a better life waiting for a call that would never come. We thrived. Story 28. An 8-month relationship left me alone at a party with her friends. I knew absolutely no one there. After a few small talks with random people and about an hour of wandering, I left because I could not find her. She called me a few hours later, drunk, saying she was getting a ride to come over. She never showed. The next day, I found out from one of the people I had small talk with that she was trying to hook up with at least 2 different guys at the party. So I stopped contacting her. She tried to get back with me for a few weeks, and then a year later, she left a sobbing voicemail wanting me back. I never answered, and that was it. I learned a lot from that experience. Story 29. When I got on his phone and saw that he was snapping a 16-year-old, his exact words to him were, "I would date you. Goodbye." He is 42, by the way. Story 30. When they may or may not have, but definitely forgot to tell me their crazy ex-boyfriend was actually their husband. Peace. Story 31. Our marriage counselor, a psychiatrist who saw us both together and separately, told me privately that I needed to leave him or I was going to die. That was eye-opening. Story 32. I made it clear that I was just there to fill the gap until a better offer came along. I am not anyone's backup choice. Story 33. My toddler was crying because he wanted his mother, not his father. My ex-husband started spanking my toddler for that reason. We were in the middle of a fight, and he took his anger out on a baby. He had been abusive to me in the past, but that was the last straw. You don't touch my child. I was at the police station the next morning. All this to say, I know the detrimental psychological effects of hearing your parents fight are very damaging. I regret not leaving sooner, but at least I left, and my children and I are safe and happy now. Story 34. He told me he should hire someone to kill me when I told him I was pregnant and was keeping it. It made it pretty easy to leave and never look back. Story 35. My ex-husband is a narcissist, and we had problems throughout the marriage. However, the moment I stopped loving him and decided to file for divorce was during couples therapy. The therapist asked why we were seeking therapy. He asked me to go first, and I said something like, "We are having trouble communicating, and we don't see eye to eye anymore. The changes we make are not long-term, and we return to normal after a few weeks." I was very team-oriented and acknowledged that we both contributed to the problems. My ex-husband, on the other hand, spent the entire remaining session, about 40 minutes, berating me and blaming me for every small thing that had gone wrong in his life. He even made up false things because he refused to take responsibility for our issues. He called me selfish, said I never considered him, accused me of isolating him from his friend group, even though I had been begging him to talk to them and try to reconnect after he chose, on his own, to stop talking to them due to his deteriorating mental health. He accused me of having an affair with my best friend, who is a very straight female. I am bisexual but do not see her that way because we have been best friends for 26 years. The accusation was because we started going on yearly girls' trips that were described as sexy and intimate. The first was to visit my sister in New York City and attend Broadway shows. The second was to visit her friend in Colorado and go hiking. The third is a cruise I am currently on with her, and we are having a great time without any hint of flirting because it is simply not like that. There were many more hurtful things he said or made up during that 40 minutes that are too painful and irritating to relive or type out. It was during that session that I realized how hard I had been trying to make the relationship work with someone who did not care about me as a person. I lost all affection and love for him in that session and filed for divorce the following week. Story 36. He had the audacity to tell me he was jealous that someone got to be with me when I was skinnier. You didn't even brush your teeth every day. You got a small rash and called yourself a monster and hideous. You were inconsolable for days after losing a softball game that didn't even have a Starbucks gift card on the line. I told him he didn't deserve the air I breathe and broke up with him. Guess what, Travis? I've lost 45 pounds, you weakling. Edit. Thank you to all the kind people saying such lovely things. This was a year and a half ago. I literally cried that night and then never again for him. I have been blissfully single since, spending quality time cultivating beautiful female friendships. I highly recommend focusing on yourself. Story 37. We had been having problems in our marriage, but one day I took a nap and missed a phone call from him. He went to the bank and emptied our joint bank account because he was scared I was leaving him. It turns out that messing with my money and giving me another reason not to trust him was the proverbial straw, and it was over. Story 38. Letting other women use my things when I was gone. I ran into a girl I suspected he was cheating on me with. She had my shirt and shoes on. I immediately went to his house to get my stuff. He freaked out when he saw me, told me to be quiet, and asked what I was doing there. I went to the room and bathroom to get my things, and another woman was in the shower. My makeup and hair straightener had been used. To this day, I don't have a bottom retainer for my teeth. I swear someone took it. I'm not even kidding. This man would also refer to me as his future ex-wife. The final blow was him throwing me across the room by my hair because I wouldn't grind and kiss the strippers at a club we went to. Story 39. She yelled at me for entering the car while she was having a private conversation with our friend. I had no idea. I was just walking back from ordering takeout at a restaurant. Story 40. Cheated. No second chances after the trust is gone. Fortunately, it was only about 3 months into the relationship, and we had not moved in together. She told me one day while we were at her place, and I left immediately, never speaking to her again. Story 41. She sucker punched me in the head after I told her she could not tell me who I could be friends with. The next morning, she made it clear I had made the right decision by pretending she had a car accident and was in the hospital. The following evening, I was going out for drinks with coworkers to celebrate a promotion. She tried to crash it with a few friends dressed as if they were at a bachelorette party. Thankfully, she arrived before us. I walked in, saw her, walked right back out, and texted everyone a new location. Story 42. An ex cheated on me while I was going through heart surgery. I ended the relationship immediately. It was a lesson I needed to learn, and I learned it well. Story 43. She cheated on me. I instantly blocked her on everything and never saw her again. She was such a sweetheart, and I was deeply hurt when she never apologized. Story 44. After tolerating weeks of her starting arguments about random matters, I remember saying something innocuous, getting the silent treatment a few minutes later, and while trying to piece it together thinking, it would be hilarious if she got mad over that. Sure enough, she started a fight about that exact thing. I remember just laughing to myself in a resigned way and deciding to leave right then and there. I told her to have a nice life. It is funny how anger and confrontation can immediately turn into desperation and begging when you turn the tables. Story 45. Taking the vital energy of our relationship and focusing on random people on the internet while maintaining multiple online relationships, all the while insisting he was trying in the marriage, was devastating. I found intimate messages on his public profile with pet names, and it broke my heart. This began while I was struggling to get pregnant and visiting doctors, feeling worthless. It caused a stabbing pain in my existence. Story 46. She left her dirty socks in the kitchen. Her dirty socks. which had a strong odor as if she had been on a long hike in old boots, were left in the middle of the kitchen area of our small shared condominium, which I owned. She threw a tantrum when I moved her socks into the laundry hamper 15 feet away in a closet. Things had been uncertain before this, but this was the final straw. Story 47. During an argument, he got about an inch from my face trying to provoke me and wouldn't let me leave the house. He was trying to get me to hit him so he could claim I was physically abusive and that he would get custody of the children if anything happened. Then he made a comment insinuating that because I was his wife, it was his legal right to sexually assault me and that no one would believe me if it happened. I have never changed my feelings so quickly in my life. I didn't realize I could actually hate a person that much. Story 48. In 1973, he bribed our 5-year-old daughter to speak into a borrowed reel-to-reel tape recorder and tell about all the beatings that mommy gave her. Being 5, she told me all about the role-playing and how she was saying the lines for the play. I confronted him. He screamed at the 5-year-old and said he couldn't trust her. He was planning a divorce, which in his fantasy involved sending me away with nothing. His girlfriend would move in and take care of the 5-year-old and my 1-year-old baby. He would keep everything, including the house. He left because, being narcissistic, he didn't want to get shot in the back with a 30-30 rifle. Story 49. He told me that he was never going to drive us anywhere further than across the street again. Then he said that I was required to pay for an Uber in addition to paying for any future dates. I cannot drive due to a medical condition. Story 50. 4 terabytes of bestiality, specifically with horses and dogs. He was abusive in other ways, which turned any affection toward him off. Story 51. He had told me he was single. Then he said he was separated from his ex-wife. Turns out he wasn't. I was foolishly obsessed with this man. I gave him some time to resolve his situation. After weeks, he said she was out of the picture, but obviously she was not. One night, I was about to make us dinner when she started calling and texting him. I asked what she wanted. He said, "I don't know, but don't worry. I'll tell her I'm going to bed so she leaves us alone." Then he went to take a shower. While he was showering, I got myself an Uber, left, and never saw him again. I called the so-called ex-wife to let her know. Surprise, she did not know about me either. So yes, I am not sure how he fixed that. Story 52. I had an ex pull a "we're going to have a baby" joke on Father's Day. I wasn't really upset when it happened, but after she revealed it was a joke shortly after, I realized I didn't want to have children with her, so I probably shouldn't be with her. At that point in my life, I didn't even know if I wanted children, but I especially didn't want any with someone like her, who had those values. I thought about it for days until I finally broke up with her. She told everyone I knew for about 2 years that I broke up with her over a joke, which isn't technically untrue, but it went a little deeper than that. Story 53. My ex's friend had left his dog at our place for a few days. One day, the dog urinated all over the home because it was old and could not hold its bladder. When my ex saw the mess, he became very angry. He started yelling at the dog, dragged it off the carpet, and locked it in a dark bathroom as punishment. Story 54. When I found out he was performing oral sex on the local gay drug dealer, that was also when I discovered he had started using methamphetamine again and impregnated his girlfriend, who I did not know existed. Difficult times. Story 55. I was already done with the relationship due to many other things, but when my grandmother died, he told me I should not be that sad because she lived in another country and I did not get to spend much time with her anyway. Story 56. He attacked me physically and told me I should kill myself because I was a useless contribution to this world. Joke's on him. I moved out the next day, started a new job 2 weeks later, and I am thriving without him now a month after it happened. Story 57. I suspected my ex-husband, whom I was married to for 17 years and together with for 20, of cheating, so I hired a private investigator. 8 days later, I filed for divorce with proof. When his affair partner's husband found out, he hanged himself in their living room, and their 16-year-old son was the one who found him. My ex came running back to me to reconcile, but I was done. It turns out my ex was previously married and cheated with this same woman, who was married to a different man. They were supposedly toxic together, so they were on and off a lot but couldn't stay away from each other. I heard they are still together, so hopefully they will stop ruining other people's lives. Story 58. I was talking to a friend about fry bread, and my white boyfriend had not realized that my skin tone was not just a really great tan. I did not talk about being indigenous much since we were still early in the relationship, but he flipped out, screamed, and called me slurs. I broke up with him then and there. He grew so angry that he threw a chair, which broke a bystander's thumb. This confirmed I was correct to leave the relationship instantly. Story 59. Woke up at 2 a.m. to find our daughter was sleeping, but then she was gone. I caught her cheating and she denied it. She slept on the bed next to us. The next morning, she confessed after a screaming match. Police helped her leave. Story 60. He had lied and not told anyone that he was the father of the 6-year-old boy next door. I was shaken, not just because he had cheated, but because he had not introduced his new son to his large family of other sons, nor to his whole neighborhood where he had lived his entire life and knew everyone. I was very sad for the child and lost all respect and affection for this man who had been my lover and travel partner for 7 years. It left me cold as ice, and I said goodbye the same day. Story 61. My ex-wife admitted while crying in marriage counseling that she knew what she was doing was abusive. But the real problem was I was not giving her what she wanted and letting her have her way with it. It was like a switch flipped. Story 62. I didn't leave immediately, but my feelings faded after his mother forbade him from seeing me following my mother's death. He was not open about his relationship, so his parents never knew we were a couple. I was just a friend from work. In that moment, I realized I had spent 3 years of my life in limbo while he was too afraid to take action. Story 63. I found he was recording our most intimate moments without my consent. I later discovered he had downloaded them to his work computer and had done the same to others. Story 64. I was mean to my grandmother. Not to her face, but she spoke badly and disrespected her in front of me. I lived with my grandmother because my mother was incapable of raising me, so that was a deal breaker. We were together for almost 4 years, but if you disrespect this woman, you will be removed from my life instantly. Story 65. He invited himself to everything I did with my friends. If I bought a concert ticket, he would buy one too without being invited. I hated that he didn't have a life outside of me. Story 66. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, she would start becoming upset because she had a hard time doing the things she once loved. I tried telling her that she needed to go to the doctor and see a therapist, but she would become violent to the point of being physically abusive. She would never apologize and thought all of this was justified. She was homeschooled with 4 other siblings, which I imagine had something to do with it. I left, and it has been amazing. Story 67. He yelled out the car window at a female driver because he thought she was exiting through the entrance. The street was marked for both. He called her dumb and more. We had many issues, and this was the wake-up call that his anger would eventually be directed at me. I scolded him when we parked and found a new place to live within 3 weeks. We were together for 4.5 years. Story 68. I was on the phone with a girl I briefly dated. She was talking about how we don't spend enough time together. But she was interrupted because outside my house I heard a loud bang. There was a terrible car accident. So I said, "Oh my God, there was a bad car accident. Can I call you back?" As I was putting on my shoes and rushing out the door, she scoffed and said, "Whatever. Go to the car accident. I don't even care anymore." I hung up, went to assist, and later sent her a text saying I wasn't feeling it. Her reaction to the loud car crash, which I know she also heard, was concerning and honestly annoying. Story 69. I found out my soon-to-be wife of 3 years was cheating on me while I was deployed in Desert Storm. I only discovered this because a family friend, whom we will call Phil, noticed strange cars in my driveway 3 days after I left. He took pictures of her welcoming men at the front door. I told her a fake date for my return but came back a week early and stayed with Phil to watch. Sure enough, she still had visitors even though she knew I was coming back. I approached my bedroom window and heard them together for confirmation. I waited for her to leave, Then Phil and I went in and piled all of her belongings and our sex-soaked mattress with 2 used condoms into the yard. I scattered the pictures on the pile. When she came back, saw the pile, the mattress, and the pictures, she became very upset. I won everything in the divorce and have had trust issues ever since. Story 70. Our relationship was already pretty bad, but it had gotten to the point where one night, he wouldn't let me take a shower by myself with my phone to listen to music because he asked, "What do you need a phone in the shower for?" He tried to sit there and watch while I showered to make sure I didn't use it. We always had really bad fights, but he was trying to bicker over this, and I calmly broke up with him. We lived together and everything, but I think that was just the straw that broke the camel's back because, to be honest, he did a lot worse during our relationship. I found out later that he was cheating on me the whole time too. Story 71. I thought I had it bad with being cheated on, but someone's partner was pleasuring themselves to stories of children getting hurt. Suddenly, my drama feels like a bad romantic comedy plot. Story 72. I was seeing this guy back in 1999, and he was abusive. We wanted to see the Will Smith movie Wild Wild West. We had seen the trailer for Wild Wild West, in which Will Smith acts as a cowboy. We had seen the music video for Wild Wild West, in which Will Smith acts as a cowboy. We had seen the making of special for Wild Wild West showing how Will Smith acted as a cowboy. We went to the movie and stayed until the credits. He made us leave early. It wasn't a good movie, but I do not leave movies in theaters, so I was upset. In the parking lot, I asked him why he wanted to leave. He looked at me and said, "I didn't know it was a Western. I hate Westerns." At that moment, I realized how insecure and unpleasant he was, and how if I stayed with him, he would make me that way too. I walked to my car and drove away, leaving him in the parking lot since he couldn't drive. I never saw him again. Story 73. Minutes after my mom had passed, he picked me up by my shoulders and told me to stop crying. I didn't know in that moment that's when I stopped loving him. I was overcome with too much grief and pain. Months ago, he kept telling me he just wanted his normal girlfriend back. When I would wake up in the middle of the night crying, he told me to stop because I kept waking him up. I had to go into the other room quietly or go downstairs and cry quietly out of fear of him waking up and being mad at me. My first Christmas without my mom, I spent the week of Christmas break at my dad's to stay there with them and my little sister. It was the day before Christmas Eve, and I asked him to come down to my dad's to stay with me on Christmas, and he refused, complaining that he had to pack this and do that, which was not that much. Meanwhile, it was just me, my little sister, and our dog, and he wanted me to pack up all my stuff so that I would be at our home with him instead of him simply packing one bag and driving 20 minutes so that he could be there with me and my family for Christmas. A few more months went by, about 8 to 9 months after my mom's passing, and he pretended like it never happened, but never let me see my family and didn't want me to hang out with my friends who supported me during those months. After about a year since my mom's passing, I finally had enough and realized that he was never the kind of support I needed in my life, especially through life-changing moments such as losing a parent. Story 74. We went to a concert. I was meeting his friends for the first time. He got very drunk before it, but he had told me he had been sober for 2 years. He called me his ex's name and then told me to go away, so I did. He begged for forgiveness afterward, but I am not risking my peace. Story 75. He wanted a body pillow of a naked 14-year-old cartoon character. He was in his 30s. I stopped responding to him immediately. Story 76. He cheated. He claimed I was the only one while sitting beside a girl he was involved with in the car. He was also using methamphetamine when I told him hard drugs are unacceptable to me. Story 77. I wouldn't call her a partner, but we had just started dating and it wasn't serious yet. She bragged to me about how she scammed a man out of $400 by pretending she was pregnant and needed an abortion. I had no idea why she thought I would be impressed or find it funny. Instead, I asked for the man's name. She refused to give it to me. I told her she was a terrible person and left. Story 78. We had been married for 4 years. We never had a sex life. I told her that I was struggling and needed things to change. She told me the problem with our sex life was me. If I would just get over it, everything would be fine. I decided to divorce her at that moment, but it took about 6 months to finalize. Story 79. Right after my mother died, he told me that I needed to rely on my family for emotional support, not him, and that my emotions made him want to drink vodka. Story 80. There were many times I should have left and walked away, but the moment I knew it was over was when I told her I was diagnosed with diabetes and she showed no sympathy or care. Story 81. Not instantly, but the next morning, I woke up to being screamed at by a drunk woman who was angry that I did not come out to meet her friends when I was sick. Story 82. Said I did not respect them and we should break up during a fight. They did not mean it, but I instantly thought, oh, we can break up. That is a choice. Yes, I am doing that. Story 83. He wanted to punish me because of something he did, and I dared to be angry. He logged into my social media accounts and impersonated me, trying to ruin a friendship. He had the audacity to wake me in the middle of the night to tell me what he had done and that he had every right to do so. I left the next day. Story 84. Not my story, but my partner's. A few years ago, he and his ex-wife custom built a suburban home after being married a few years. In the final year of their marriage, while the house was being finished, my boyfriend found out she had been cheating for 6 months with his coworker. The best part is that she married the coworker and they live a few blocks away from us. She got a new job with the post office, delivering my mail to the house she built, lived in for 4 months, and was essentially kicked out of. Story 85. After a lot of drinks, he told me he really hates listening to black people talk, then proceeded to make fun of what he hears when they talk. For reference, I was his first black girlfriend. Story 86. He joked that he would tie me to a heater to teach me a lesson. I did not want to move to another city. The story was ridiculous. We were getting married, and he promised to leave his underpaid job to move in with me in the big city. Then, after we married, suddenly he acted like a tyrant, saying, "You are my wife, and you have to do as I say." I refused to change our initial plan, and he was furious. Hence, the joke that did not sound like one. I immediately filed for a divorce. Story 87. He said he was working on his ongoing pornography addiction. I was doing my best to support him until I found him looking at nude drawings of 10-year-old anime girls. I made new living arrangements the next morning. Story 88. When he hit me twice, astonishingly I forgave him once because he cried a lot. But he hit me again when I was not well. I can't shake off that feeling. It was midnight, and I could hardly escape. I had to be in that godforsaken place for a long time. Story 89. I found his marriage license certificate online addressed to his widowed sister-in-law and mailed it to him. I guess she was not his sister, as he claimed. Story 90. Threw my PlayStation 3 across the room and broke it. I said no. If we are only a month in and she is behaving like that, more violence will follow. I did not even care about the loss of my PlayStation 3. I am not dealing with a violent relationship. Story 91. He robbed a local gaming store for Magic, the Gathering cards. Also, I am pretty sure he was using drugs because he had been acting weird for a few weeks. When I found out about the robbery, I cut him off. He never came back for his television, though, so at least I got a consolation prize. Story 92. After supporting my girlfriend through her mental health issues, when I was suffering, I asked her for her help and support. We sat down and went over details. 2 weeks later, I shared that I was making progress and had a good day. She looked at me, thought about her words for a moment, and said the thing I had shared with her earlier that triggered me and put me back in a state of self-pity. There was no doubt it was completely intentional. I broke up with her the next day. I realized how self-centered a person she really was. Story 93. Not me, but a friend of mine. She had moved in with her boyfriend a few weeks before as they were both starting at the same college. At one point, he said he did not know why she was there, as she should not work anyway since she was supposed to be a housewife while he supplied the income. We helped her move out within 3 days. Story 94. She got physical with me. I ended the relationship as soon as she put her hands on me. She begged me to stay. I could not do it, knowing it would only get worse if I stayed. Story 95. I was young and in a terrible relationship with a methamphetamine addict 11 years older than me. He had issues with pornography, but I thought all men were like that, so I ignored it. I knew he had cheated on me a couple of times, so I regularly checked his phone to see if he was still doing it. The kind of pornography he watched was typical, nothing unusual, until I gave birth to our daughter. About a month after giving birth, I went through his phone again, and his search history contained numerous variations of inappropriate father-daughter pornography. It was an unbearable feeling, but something in my gut told me to leave. He refused to let me go, leading to a massive argument where I genuinely feared he might hurt me. Thankfully, I escaped with my daughter, and we lived happily ever after far away from him. Story 96. He said there was nothing wrong with my eldest, which multiple doctors disagreed with. He would make spaghetti bolognese and leave it in a pan for it to start growing mold. Then take the mold out of the pan and warm it up. Oh, and he abandoned the kids. That was the last straw. Story 97. This was about 15 years ago, but he punched a hole in the wall near my head. He had never shown signs of physical violence before, and I am not sure I was really scared of him. We were probably going to be evenly matched and both terrible at fighting. However, apparently that was the line. I did not even think for a second about it. It was over. Story 98. He promised a sex worker $500 per week to sleep with him. When I found out, I reached out to the woman and told her the truth. He then gave her my work cell phone number and said I was crazy. I was done. Story 99. He tried to rent out rooms in our house, which we owned, without my consent. I had told him no when he brought it up the first time, but he did it anyway. One morning, I woke up to go to work, but my car was blocked in by another car. I called him, and he told me he had rented a room, and it was the guest's car. He said he specifically told the guest not to block me in, though it did not improve the situation. I knocked on the guest's door, and a half-naked man in boxers came out, yawning. I politely asked him to move the car, and he did. In my mind, I kept thinking about how my husband left his wife with a stranger in our home. I called off work to take a personal day and started packing. I stayed with a friend until I could send him divorce papers and finalize the divorce many months later. Story 100. He was unemployed at Christmas time, so I bought gifts for his family members. During the entire time at his family gathering, he was texting random people and girls. I was the only one actually engaging with them. Christmas also happens to be my birthday, and I had kept a box cake in the cupboard for months. Not once did he consider making the cake for my birthday, even though I made sure everything was available or even handwrite a card. When we got home from his parents' place, I told him to pack his things and leave. I called his mother and said, "I'm sorry. He is going to have to come back because he forgot his manners. He had nowhere else to live." She apologized to me and was not surprised. Good riddance. Do not let anyone mistreat you. Story 101. Called an interracial relationship disgusting. It was a boxer and his wife on television. Before mobile phones, I called a taxi and waited outside. Reject that racist noise. Story 102. Got intoxicated on drugs and alcohol and told me she wanted a divorce while we were on a weekend trip to the lake. Story 103. He got drunk on his birthday and attacked me physically after I had handmade his gifts, baked him cookies, and also bought him a cake. Story 104. I told his daughter we broke up but did not tell her the real reason because he cheated. He got mad at me after he told her because my decision to leave hurt her. He never took responsibility for his actions and blamed me entirely. He even twisted the story to make himself look like the victim. He told his daughter on a Wednesday. I found a new place to live and moved out by Monday. Story 105. He fabricated a conflict by provoking me and distorting the story to portray himself as the victim during marriage counseling. Then, he abandoned me and my 2 children on Mother's Day weekend to visit his hometown. There, he spent time with another woman, although his account changed frequently. Upon returning home, he lied about everything and berated me continuously. Shortly afterward, he bought a puppy. Story 106. He did not check on the baby in the morning because it was my turn. I had come down with influenza, spiked a fever overnight, and did not wake until lunchtime. He did nothing. I attended to the distressed baby, then told him to leave. Story 107. Booked a vacation to Greece with a 21-year-old who was in his ancient Greek class. He had returned to university at age 36 and said she was his study partner. He left our shared desktop computer open, with the email outlining their itinerary. That's how I found out. In retrospect, he wanted out and did not have the decency to tell me. I moved out that week. He contacted me months later to ask for forgiveness. He said she was a virgin who wanted to lose her virginity with someone she trusted, so he was being a nice guy by helping a friend. He further told me that he did indeed indulge her wishes on a beach in Mykonos. What a pig. Story 108. Found the credit card charges for his ex's OnlyFans account for the entire first year of our relationship. That was not very considerate. Story 109. Started going fully Make America Great Again around 2019 to 2020. Obsessed over police body camera videos where the victims were black people. Used an anonymous SMUF account that posted the most racist content I have ever seen. It was scary. Never missed Red Pill podcasts and was obsessed with conspiracy theories. I did not want to be affiliated if they went on a rampage because that was the trajectory they were heading. Story 110. He cheated on me, and about a month later, when we spoke about it, his excuse was that he had been attracted to that person since he was 16 and needed to get it out of his system. Because at the time, that person was extremely mentally unwell, drunk, and on drugs, he did not want to miss the opportunity. Story 111. I had been dating this girl for a couple of months, and we double dated with my friend and his partner one night. They had never met before, and things were going okay. She spoke about how she had cervical cancer, which was very sad. But then, as we were looking for a taxi, she started doing a strange dance around everyone, circling us and chanting that she used to have cancer. It went on and on. We all smiled politely, and I got into my cab and never called her again. Story 112. After a serious complication from knee surgery left me unable to walk without a walker, we were driving to a restaurant for dinner. He stopped by the front door, looked at me, then drove to the back of the parking lot and left me in the car with my walker in the trunk without looking back. That is when I realized that he would never help me if I needed it. It would take away from focusing all the attention on him. It took a few more incidents like that over the next couple of weeks before I finally filed for divorce. Story 113. Texted me saying maybe things would be better if we had some time apart. I packed all of my belongings and left our house in the 2-hour window between finishing work and his arrival home. The texts and calls I received when he saw I had gone were frantic. It was a horrible relationship. He didn't believe I would really leave. That night, I slept well and did not have to cry myself to sleep lying next to him. I think I had been waiting months for some sign or permission to leave. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.